William walks into the east wing of Clarence House on a gray Tuesday morning in March 2026, carrying nothing but a single ring of master keys the Clerk of Works had pressed into his hand 3 days earlier. The £47.3 million renovation is already 6 months behind schedule and climbing. Scaffolding still wraps the Portland stone façade like a cage. Dust sheets hang from the cornices of the staterooms like funeral cloth. The air smells of plaster dust, wet paint, and the faint metallic tang of new copper pipe. And somewhere behind a false wall on the second floor, a door that does not appear on any official floor plan, drawn since 1999, has been waiting for 26 years. The workmen call it the Annabel cupboard. They laugh when they say the name. They have no idea what they are laughing at. The door itself is ordinary, painted the same soft cream as the corridor, fitted with a simple brass handle that turns only with one of the keys William now holds. Behind it, the chamber is small, no larger than a butler's pantry, lined floor to ceiling with the same pale blue silk Annabel Elliott's firm once specified for Camilla's private sitting room at Ray Mill House. The fabric is still perfect, still smelling faintly of the cedar blocks that had been placed inside to keep moths away. On a single oak shelf sit 12 archival boxes, each stamped with the cipher of the Duchy of Cornwall and the year 1999. Beside them rests a Sony TCD5 Pro cassette recorder, its battery compartment still holding 2 alkaline cells that somehow retain a charge. A 90-minute Maxell tape is loaded and ready. The handwriting on the label is precise, almost elegant. C and A. Strategy notes, October 14, 1998 to March 3, 2000. Destroy after reading. William does not destroy it. He closes the door behind him, sits on the bare floorboards, and presses play. For 47 minutes, the renovation crew hammers and drills 2 floors below, while Camilla's voice, low and practical, outlines a 5-year plan to reposition the Diana narrative. Then Annabel's voice cuts in, sharper, more tactical, the voice of someone who has already measured every corridor and every budget line. She lists the precise mechanisms with the calm of a woman ordering fabric samples, redirect £2.8 million in residual funding from the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund, into broader family charities controlled by the Prince's Trust. Pressure the 3 remaining independent trustees to resign by threatening withdrawal of royal patronage under the 1983 Royal Charities Act, Section 7(2). Commission a private audit of every photograph and letter still held at Althorpe, then classify the most damaging material as private correspondence of the sovereign's household under the Royal Archives Ordinance of 1952, thereby placing it beyond the reach of Freedom of Information requests. Ensure that any future exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum or Kensington Palace carries the formal designation approved by the household of the Duchess of Cornwall. Her final recorded line is almost casual, spoken as if she were discussing curtain lengths. If we control the rooms, we control the story, and I already control the rooms. William sits in the dark long after the tape clicks off. He photographs every page of every box. He makes digital copies of the cassette on 3 separate encrypted drives. He does not tell his father. He does not tell the private secretaries who shadow him through every official engagement. He tells only 2 people, his private solicitor, a King's Counsel who once advised the Spencer family during the darkest years after 1997, and his uncle Charles Spencer. What follows is 11 weeks of absolute silence. The material moves through a chain of encrypted drives that never touch a palace server. A private trust is registered in Jersey under the deliberately neutral name 1997 Continuity Settlement. Its sole beneficiaries are William and Harry. The governing instrument, drafted over late-night calls between London and Althorpe, contains a single trigger clause. The entire archive becomes public the moment any member of the royal household attempts to restrict access to Diana's remaining personal papers or to any document that reveals how those papers were once handled. The trust is structured so that sovereign immunity cannot reach it. The High Court of Chancery has already sealed the deed. No future king, no Lord Chamberlain, no government minister can unwind it without triggering the very disclosure it is designed to force. While the lawyers work, William continues the public performance of a dutiful heir. He attends the same dinners, smiles for the same cameras, listens to the same briefings about continuity and healing. Camilla and Annabel notice nothing. Why would they? For more than 2 decades, Annabel has been the quiet architect of rooms and narratives. She redesigned the private apartments at Clarence House after Camilla moved in. She advised on the soft furnishings at Burke Hall. She sat on the boards of 3 royal charities and held a royal warrant that allowed Annabel Elliott Interiors to print the words, "By appointment to Her Majesty Queen Camilla" on every invoice. The diamond brooch she wore to formal evenings, once belonging to the Queen Mother, had been gifted to her in 2012 for services to the household. In the closed world of the palace, Annabel was not merely the Queen's sister. She was the woman who made the walls look as if they had always belonged to the new order. The moment of revelation is chosen with the same cold precision that Annabel once used to choose paint colors. On the evening of the 18th of June 2026, the annual Patrons' Dinner of the Royal Foundation is held in the newly restored Lancaster House. The irony is almost too perfect. Lancaster House had been the site of countless diplomatic receptions, a stage on which the monarchy projected stability. Tonight, the guest list is a carefully curated mixture of senior courtiers, major donors, ambassadors, and a small press pool permitted to cover the opening speeches. Camilla sits at the head table wearing the Greville emerald necklace, the same stones that once rested on the collarbones of Queen Mary and the Queen Mother. Annabel sits 2 seats to her left, the diamond brooch catching the candlelight each time she turns her head. The printed program lists a short address by the Prince of Wales on the theme Continuity and Compassion. William stands when the Toastmaster calls his name. He does not glance at the teleprompter. He places a single pale folder on the lectern. Under the chandeliers, the red wax seal of the High Court of Chancery is clearly visible. His voice never rises above the level of ordinary conversation, yet every word carries to the back of the room and into the microphones, feeding the live broadcast. He describes the false wall on the 2nd floor of Clarence House. He describes the pale blue silk that still smelled of cedar. He describes the 12 boxes stamped 1999 and the Sony recorder that still worked after 26 years. He names the voices on the tape. He reads, without embellishment, the exact language of the strategy notes, the £2.8 million diversion, the threatened use of Section 7(2) of the 1983 Royal Charities Act, the classification of Althorp papers under the 1952 Royal Archives Ordinance, the requirement that future exhibitions carry the formal designation of the Duchess of Cornwall's household. Then he reads Annabel's final line about controlling the rooms. The silence that follows is not the polite hush of a formal dinner. It is the silence of people rapidly calculating the distance between themselves and the blast radius. Annabel's face drains of color so completely that the diamond brooch at her shoulder looks suddenly vulgar. She reaches for her sister's hand across the white damask. Camilla does not take it. Her own fingers remain locked around the stem of a water goblet that has not yet been spilled. William continues. He announces that every document, every memorandum, every inch of that Maxell tape has already been transferred into the 1997 Continuity Settlement, a sovereign trust registered beyond the reach of the Crown, the Duchy of Cornwall, or the Lord Chamberlain's office. The beneficiaries are her sons. The trigger has already been armed. Any attempt to suppress the material will only accelerate its release. Within 90 seconds, the first encrypted file packet reaches the secure servers of the BBC, The Times, and The Washington Post. Within 6 minutes, an emergency order is issued from the Lord Chamberlain's office under Regulation 14 of the Royal Warrants Act. 1905. The royal warrant held by Annabel Elliott Interiors, the same warrant that had allowed the firm to trade on the Queen's name, is suspended with immediate effect. Within 48 hours, 3 major commercial contracts valued at £11.4 million are cancelled by clients who suddenly find association with the firm politically radioactive. Within a week, Annabel's name is removed from the boards of every remaining royal charity she still occupied. The court circular simply stops listing her. William does not look at either woman as he closes the folder. He walks past the head table, past the equerries frozen in place, past the protection officers who have been trained never to touch the air unless he is in physical danger. Just loud enough for the nearest microphones to catch the words, he says, "My mother kept her own rooms. We will keep them still." The broadcast continues. No one in the control room dares cut the feed. The 1.8 million people watching at home see everything. The stillness at the head table, the moment Annabel's hand falls back into her lap unanswered, the way Camilla's expression hardens into something that is no longer royal composure but pure calculation of damage. A veteran correspondent from a Sunday newspaper later describes the atmosphere as the sound of an entire carefully constructed mythology, cracking along a single fault line. In the days that follow, the palace press office attempts the familiar maneuvers. A statement is drafted speaking of private family discussions and the need for historical sensitivity. It is never issued. The documents are already public. The tape has been transcribed and verified by independent audio analysts. The legal structure of the 1997 continuity settlement has been examined by 3 separate sets of counsel and found to be airtight. No injunction can reach Jersey in time. No claim of sovereign privilege can unpick a trust whose trigger clause has already been satisfied by the very attempt to manage the story. Annabel Elliott's fall is quieter than Camilla's public humiliation, yet in some ways more complete. The diamond brooch is returned to the royal collection within 10 days, accompanied by a formal note that makes no mention of gratitude. The pale blue silk that once lined the secret chamber is photographed, catalogued, and then permanently sealed again, this time under the authority of the continuity settlement. No member of the household is granted a key. The Clerk of Works receives new instructions. The false wall is to be removed and the space incorporated into a secondary plant room. The Annabel cupboard ceases to exist on every subsequent floor plan. For William, the cost is different. He has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. The relationship with his father, already strained by years of carefully managed distance, now carries an open fracture. Courtiers who once spoke of the Prince of Wales as the reliable continuity candidate begin to speak in private of a man willing to detonate institutional memory to protect a personal one. Yet among the public that still measures the monarchy against the memory of Diana, the moment is received as something closer to overdue justice. Polling conducted in the fortnight after the Lancaster House dinner shows a measurable shift. Trust in the institution falls, while personal approval for William among those under 40 rises by nearly 9 points. The renovation at Clarence House continues on its delayed timetable. Scaffolding comes down, dust sheets are folded away, new carpets are laid in the staterooms, but on the second floor, behind what is now an ordinary service door, the chamber that once held 12 boxes and a single cassette remains empty and locked. The pale blue silk is gone. The cedar scent has faded. Only the knowledge remains that for 26 years, a room inside the official residence of the Prince of Wales had been used to store the blueprint for the quiet erasure of a woman's history, and that the woman who designed that room had believed, until the final evening, that control of the walls meant control of the story. It did not. The rooms, at last, are no longer hers to control, and the story that was meant to be archived, softened, and approved by the household of the Duchess of Cornwall is now permanent public record, lodged in a trust that no future sovereign can dissolve. The ghost the palace tried to file away under classification codes and patronage threats has instead rewritten the inventory of what the institution is allowed to own. In the end, the most damaging detail was never the money diverted, or the trustees pressured, or the exhibitions quietly rebranded. It was the casual confidence in Annabel's recorded voice, the assumption that the people who controlled the physical spaces would always control the narrative that lived inside them. That assumption lasted exactly as long as the false wall remained unopened. Once the door swung wide, the entire carefully maintained fiction of continuity and compassion collapsed under the weight of its own archived words. William never returns to the chamber. He does not need to. The copies exist. The trust exists. The public record exists. And somewhere in a climate-controlled strong room in Jersey, 12 boxes and one 90-minute Maxell tape wait in permanent, irreversible daylight, no longer secrets of the household, but evidence that the household's secrets could be kept only for as long as no one who truly belonged to the story decided to turn the key. What remains months later is not the shock of the evening itself, but the quiet permanence of what it removed. Annabel Elliott no longer appears in any official capacity connected to the household. The interiors firm that once traded on proximity to power has been restructured. Its royal associations erased from every letterhead and website. The diamond brooch sits again in the royal collection under a new catalog number that makes no reference to the woman who wore it. Camilla continues her public duties, yet the careful mythology of patient endurance that had been built around her now carries a permanent asterisk, the recorded voice of her sister calmly describing how a dead woman's memory was to be managed, diluted, and finally owned. Inside Clarence House, the renovation reaches completion on a revised timetable. Visitors walk polished corridors that give no hint of the false wall that once stood on the second floor. Only a handful of people know that behind an ordinary service door, the chamber still exists, empty, photographed, locked under the authority of a trust that answers to no sovereign. The pale blue silk is gone. The cedar scent has faded. What lingers is the knowledge that for 26 years, the institution believed control of the physical rooms guaranteed control of the story told inside them. That belief is finished. The 1997 continuity settlement cannot be dissolved. The tape cannot be recalled. The documents cannot be reclassified. In the end, the palace did not lose a public relations battle. It lost the legal right to decide which version of the past would be allowed to survive. The rooms, once carefully curated, now belong to the record. And the record, at last, belongs to no one but the woman whose voice was meant to be silenced.